Imagine you're like sitting in a middle school math class. The teacher is at the whiteboard talking about fractions or common denominators, whatever.
Right.
But your brain isn't registering a single word of it. Instead, your heart is just pounding, your palms are sweating, and your nervous system is firing the exact same biological alarm bells as if you were being hunted by a predator in the wild.
Oh, absolutely.
And why? Because someone whispered a vicious rumor about you in the hallway like 5 minutes ago, and they're sitting 2 rows behind you.
Yeah, the proximity is terrifying.
It really is. Today, we are taking a hard look at the biological reality of childhood bullying. And we're completely dismantling this generation-spanning myth that being tormented by your peers is just, some normal character-building rite of passage.
Right, the whole kids will be kids thing.
Exactly. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are exploring how persistent bullying actually rewires a developing brain. And then we are analyzing this highly tangible, systematic solution that's currently rolling out in Georgia called the MentalSpace school model.
It's honestly a critical shift in how we view adolescent development. For decades, society has treated the playground bully as a developmental milestone.
Yeah, like you have to go through it.
Right, as if dodging a rumor mill or surviving being shoved into a locker is somehow, essential for entering adulthood.
Yeah.
But when you look at the intersection of modern neurobiology and behavioral science, that philosophical debate just crumbles.
It totally falls apart.
It really does.
Yeah.
We're looking directly at clinical data today that fundamentally reclassifies what bullying actually is to the human body.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with that stubbornly persistent toughen up myth.
Sure.
Because the core problem here isn't a social issue, it's a biological one.
Exactly.
The clinical reality is that persistent bullying is not a life lesson, it's an actual, measurable trauma exposure.
It is. When a child is repeatedly targeted, whether that happens through, deliberate exclusion, public humiliation, physical threats, or online rumor campaigns, right, their body just does not process it as a simple interpersonal conflict. The nervous system's response to this kind of relentless targeting mirrors post-traumatic stress, chronic anxiety, and clinical depression.
Wow. And it doesn't even matter if it's happening in the physical hallway or in, like, a group chat online, right?
Not at all. The body's biological response is identical.
That is wild. To help you visualize this, think of a bullied child's nervous system, like a smoke alarm in a house. So normally, a smoke alarm goes off when there's a fire. You put the fire out, the smoke clears, and the alarm resets to quiet.
Right, that's the healthy baseline.
But persistent bullying jams that smoke alarm in the on position. It's just blaring constantly, day and night, and the child's body cannot reset back to a normal baseline. So what does this all mean for a child trying to, function in a normal classroom while their brain is in survival mode?
Well, because that alarm never shuts off, the body stays continuously flooded with stress hormones, things like cortisol and adrenaline.
Oh, wow, just constant.
Constantly. The brain is essentially bracing for the next attack, the next rumor, the next humiliation. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the evolutionary biology of the human brain, it makes perfect sense.
Oh, so?
Well, the brain evolved to prioritize survival above all else. Early in human history, being excluded from the tribe or the social group meant literal death. You couldn't survive on your own.
So to a developing brain, severe social isolation or like targeted humiliation literally feels like an existential life or death threat.
Precisely. The brain cannot readily distinguish between a physical danger, like being chased by a predator, and a severe social or emotional threat, like being systematically excluded by your peers.
That is fascinating.
And when that internal smoke alarm is blaring, the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain responsible for logic, complex learning, and focus, it essentially gets hijacked by the amygdala.
And the amygdala is the fear center, right?
Exactly. It's the brain's primitive fear center.
So they literally cannot learn the fractions on the whiteboard because their brain is spending all of its available metabolic energy just trying to survive the social environment of the classroom.
That's exactly what's happening.
Validating this as a legitimate biological trauma response, that changes everything about how we should handle it.
It changes the entire paradigm. We stop treating it as a discipline issue between two kids and start treating it as a health crisis for the victim.
Right. But if their brain is locked in that survival state, the obvious question is how a parent or a teacher is supposed to spot it.
Yeah, that's the tricky part.
Because the data shows this terrifying roadblock. A lot of children never say a single word about what they're going through. They actively hide it.
They do. And they are incredibly adept at concealing it from the adults in their lives. However, the behavioral research provide the very specific roadmap of warning signs to watch out for.
Okay.
It's essentially a list of silent alarms that the body and mind trigger when they can no longer contain the stress.
Let's run through those silent alarms because if you are a parent, an educator, or just somebody who has kids in your life, you need to know what this looks like.
Absolutely.
So you'll see a sudden dread of school. You'll see frequent stomach aches or sick mornings, which leads to repeated trips to the school nurse. You might see falling grades, belongings that suddenly go missing or come home damaged.
Unexplained marks, too.
Right, unexplained marks. A child pulling away from their established friend groups. Irritability or uncharacteristic angry outbursts, disrupted sleep or nightmares, and perhaps the most profound indicator, a once confident child becoming highly anxious, watchful, or withdrawn.
Yes. That watchfulness is the hypervigilance we were just talking about.
Yes.
That is the amygdala scanning the room, analyzing every whisper, every glance, just waiting for the next attack. It is exhausting for the child.
I mean, I want to push back on the physical symptoms for a second, though. Looking at this list, a lot of these signs sound like everyday childhood hiccups.
Sure, they can be.
Right. Like kids get stomach aches because they ate too much junk food. They lose their pencils or rip their backpacks all the time. They have off weeks where they're grumpy or just don't want to wake up early.
Very true.
So how does a parent or teacher distinguish between a kid just having an off week and a kid suffering in silence?
It is a vital distinction to make because you are right. A lost pencil is usually just a lost pencil.
Exactly.
What's fascinating here is that the key isn't looking at a single isolated incident. It's about looking for patterns and drastic shifts in their baseline behavior.
Okay, shifts in the baseline.
Right. If a confident child who normally loves reading suddenly hates it, or a child who's usually very outgoing suddenly becomes incredibly guarded and watchful, that is a shift in their baseline. You're looking for the damaged belongings paired with the sudden, severe stomach aches every single Sunday night.
The dreaded Sunday night anxiety, where the reality of Monday mornings starts setting in. And a stomachache isn't always just a fake excuse to get out of class, is it?
Not at all. The gut and the brain are deeply connected via the enteric nervous system. When a child is flooded with anxiety and stress hormones, it physically disrupts their digestion.
Wow.
That stomachache is a genuine biological symptom of their fear.
Which brings us to the most heartbreaking question. Why do they hide it? If they are in that much physical and emotional pain, why not just tell a teacher?
It's the paradox of shame. Children are often silenced by a profound sense of shame. They internalize the bullying and believe there's something fundamentally wrong with them to cause it.
That's devastating.
It is. But even more powerful than the shame is the intense fear of retaliation. They make a terrifying calculation. They think, if I tell the principal, the bully will find out, and the targeting will become twice as vicious behind closed doors.
Basically, it's safer for me to just endure this in silence. That is an incredibly heavy burden for a 10-year-old to carry alone.
Absolutely.
And the worse the bullying gets, the harder they try to conceal it to avoid poking the bear.
Yes. That fear of retaliation is the primary mechanism that allows systemic bullying to continue for months or even years completely undetected.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because the clinical research doesn't just leave us in the dark with this trauma. It points to a deeply hopeful reality.
It does.
The core message is that children heal. This trauma is not a permanent sentence, provided they get the right help.
Exactly. Trauma from bullying is profound, but it is highly treatable. The clinical roadmap lays out a very specific, multi-pronged approach to this healing.
Okay,
It's not just about a quick pep talk. It requires a structured, three-pillared intervention.
let's break down those 3 pillars. First, there's trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. Second, coordinated school safety planning. And third, steady family support.
Yes, all 3 are necessary.
And all of this must be guided by a licensed clinician. Oh, and the foundational mantra that underpins all of this is that the bullying is never the child's fault.
That mantra is critical because it directly attacks the shame we discussed earlier. The child has to internalize that they are not broken and they did not invite the abuse.
So help me understand the actual mechanics of this. How does this therapist get a traumatized 10-year-old to untangle that deep-seated shame?
It's a process.
Because the old, outdated solution was just, sending a kid to a guidance counselor to talk about their feelings once and then telling them to ignore the bully. This 3-pillared approach is obviously much deeper. What does trauma-focused CBT actually do to a brain locked in survival mode?
Well, cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, is essentially a method of examining how our thoughts affect our feelings and our behaviors.
Right.
In a trauma-focused setting, the clinician helps the child identify their automatic negative thoughts. For example, a child might have the underlying thought, everyone hates me and I deserve to be treated this way.
Ouch.
The therapist works mechanically to help the child challenge the evidence for that thought and gradually replace it with a reality-based narrative. Something like, I was targeted by one person who made a bad choice and I am safe and valued.
So it gives them the cognitive tools to turn off that internal smoke alarm.
It teaches them how to manually reset the alarm. It helps them process the traumatic memories so they stop feeling like they're happening in the present moment.
That's huge.
It is. But, and this addresses the second pillar, therapy alone is fundamentally insufficient if we are sending that child right back into the exact same burning house.
Right. You can't just teach a kid how to manage their anxiety, give them a great coping mechanism, and then drop them back into the hallway with the exact same kid who has been threatening them for 6 months.
Exactly. Which is why the second pillar, coordinated school safety planning, is mandatory. The environment itself must be physically and socially altered.
What does that look like in practice?
This might mean the adults in the building staggering class dismissal times, rearranging seating charts, or establishing clear enforced boundaries so the victim never has to cross paths with the aggressor unsupervised.
Oh, I see.
The school has to create a structural safety net.
And then the third pillar, steady family support, creates the emotional safety net at home. It sounds like healing requires all three working in concert.
Absolutely.
The clinician guides the internal therapy, the school enforces the external boundaries, and the family provides the unconditional safe harbor.
Only when all three of those environments are secured can the child's nervous system truly believe it is safe enough to let its guard down and relax.
I mean, I am completely stuck on the logistics here, though.
Oh, logistics are tough.
It makes perfect sense on paper. It's a brilliant clinical solution. But let's look at the reality of the modern K-12 education system and healthcare access.
Right.
School administrators are drowning in state testing, budget cuts, and staffing shortages. How on earth do they have the bandwidth to build a clinical therapy wing and coordinate all of this?
It's a massive challenge.
Seriously, getting a kid into specialized trauma therapy usually means a parent sitting on a waiting list for 6 months, missing work to drive across town, and fighting with out-of-network insurance billing.
You have just identified the exact systemic barrier that prevents healing for the vast majority of students. We have known the clinical solution for years, but the structural access to that solution has historically been entirely broken.
Which brings us to the MentalSpace school model. This is an innovative structure currently rolling out for K-12 schools across Georgia, and it's designed specifically to dismantle those logistical and financial hurdles.
Yes.
They aren't asking the schools to become healthcare providers. They're bringing the healthcare infrastructure directly into the educational ecosystem.
The scope of what MentalSpace School offers is comprehensive, and it directly addresses those barriers you mentioned. They provide dedicated therapist teams for each individual school.
And they don't just stop at individual therapy. The model includes crisis intervention, suicide and violence prevention programs, staff wellness initiatives, and family counseling.
It's a holistic approach.
They utilize licensed therapists, and a major focal point of their model is cultural competence and diversity among their clinicians.
That cultural competence is not just a buzzword. It is a clinical necessity.
Oh, really?
Yes. For a child to feel safe enough to process deep trauma, they need to feel fundamentally understood by the person sitting across from them. Having a diverse team of licensed professionals ensures that the therapy is relatable to the specific, unique student populations a school is serving.
That makes total sense, but the operational detail that is truly staggering to me is their provision for same-day teletherapy.
It's revolutionary.
Wait, like actually the same day? That's unheard of. How does that practically work inside a school building? I mean, we just talked about kids languishing on waiting lists for months while their nervous system is in a state of emergency.
Practically, it means the mental health support is integrated into the school day. A student in crisis doesn't have to wait for a parent to leave work, pick them up, and drive them to an office.
Okay.
The school can facilitate a secure, private space, perhaps an office with a laptop or an iPad, where the student can connect with a licensed MentalSpace therapist immediately.
Wow. So a kid doesn't have to wait until November to process a traumatic humiliation that happened in September. It moves the entire timeline of mental health care from a delayed, reactive model to an immediate, proactive one.
And when you are dealing with a hijacked amygdala and a child in active crisis, time is absolutely of the essence. early intervention prevents the trauma from cementing itself into long-term behavioral issues.
But anytime you merge medical care with a K-12 school environment, you are colliding two massive worlds of privacy law and administrative red tape.
Oh yeah, the compliance side is huge.
You have the medical records on one side, which is AGPAE, and you have the students' educational records on the other, which is FERPA.
This raises an important question of how schools manage all this. MentalSpace School is structured to navigate that dual compliance seamlessly.
Oh, really?
Yes. They maintain strict privacy standards, ensuring that both the health information protected by FERPA and the educational records protected by FERPA are entirely secure and siloed appropriately.
And in Georgia specifically, school administrators are facing a massive legislative mandate. The MentalSpace model provides direct support for HB 268 compliance, which has a looming deadline of July 2026.
Right, the deadline is fast approaching.
What exactly is HB 268 demanding of these schools?
House Bill 268 in Georgia places rigorous mandates on school districts to establish specific, actionable mental health and safety protocols for their students. Schools are required to have tangible systems in place to handle crises, bullying, and mental health interventions.
Okay.
So by integrating the MentalSpace school model, districts are solving a dual problem.
Ah, I see. They get the immediate mental health infrastructure for the students, and they get the structural, administrative compliance to hit that state-mandated July 2026 deadline.
Exactly.
It takes the healthcare administration burden off the plates of principals and teachers, letting them focus on educating.
Exactly. But none of this infrastructure matters if the families cannot afford to use it. The financial accessibility is arguably the most disruptive data point in this entire model.
It is a systemic game changer. For students on Medicaid, the cost for this therapy is $0. Zero.
Incredible.
A parent never has to make the agonizing choice between buying groceries for the week and getting their traumatized child mental health support. And beyond Medicaid, they accept a massive net of insurance providers. BCBS, Cigna, Aetna, UHC, Humana, Peach State, CareSource, and Amerigroup.
By blanketing the insurance landscape and ensuring Medicaid access at no cost, they are democratizing access to trauma-focused care.
They really are.
They remove the friction, the travel time, the waiting lists, the billing nightmares that traditionally stops families from ever engaging with the three-pillared healing roadmap we discussed.
For anyone listening who is involved in school administration in Georgia, or, if you're a parent who wants to point your local school board toward a tangible solution, their contact information is incredibly straightforward.
Yes, it is.
It's mentalspaceschool.com, or you can reach out directly via email at mentalspaceschool@cheattherapy.com.
It's a highly actionable pathway to transforming how a community handles the biological fallout of bullying.
So to bring this all together for you listening, we have covered immense ground today. We started by dismantling a very old, very dangerous societal myth.
The toughen up myth.
Right. We established that persistent bullying is not a rite of passage. It's a genuine biological trauma response that locks a developing nervous system in a state of hypervigilant survival.
Absolutely.
We learned how to decode the silent alarms. Understanding the biological reality behind the Sunday night stomach atches and the sudden watchfulness, because we know the paradox of shame keeps kids silent.
Sadly, yes.
But most importantly, we explored how the three pillars of healing, trauma-focused CBT, school safety, and family support, can actually reset a child's nervous system. And we saw how the MentalSpace school model in Georgia is breaking down the logistical and financial barriers to make that healing accessible to everyone.
It is a remarkably hopeful structural shift. And as we wrap up our analysis today, there is one underlying context that warrants some deep reflection.
Okay, what's that?
The clinical reality is that this trauma exposure happens when a child is targeted in the hallway or online, and they stay silent because they fear telling will make the retaliation worse.
Right.
I want you to really ponder this. In an era where the digital world is 2047 and completely permanent, how much more intense is that fear of retaliation for a child today compared to decades past?
That's a great question.
When the bullying doesn't stop at the school bus door, but follows them into their bedroom, vibrating in their pocket through a smartphone at 2 in the morning, doesn't that constant, inescapable threat make the immediate availability of tools like same-day teletherapy not just a modern convenience, but an absolute necessity for survival?
Wow. That is a chilling but crucial point to consider.
Yeah.
The fire in that digital burning house never really goes out on its own anymore, does it?
No, it doesn't.
That internal smoke alarm is going to keep ringing until we systematically provide them with the tools to reset it. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking questions, keep looking out for those silent alarms and the kids around you, and we will catch you next time.